I do have my guitar here.
That's awesome. Should I get my guitar?
Yeah.
We'll
I
just
got my
jam.
drums right here.
How many roads must a man fove down? Just kidding.
Hi.
How's it going?
Mark, what's
Oh,
going
it's
on?
great. Finally, well, we finally get to talk to the man where we put all our money into.
Seriously.
Nice, nice.
Where are you right now in the
Yeah,
world?
where are you
exactly?
in the
I'm in my backyard. I call it the future cube. It's a glorified shed.
It's not the Dexter shed, right?
Right.
No, sir.
Tonight's the night.
We've been following you for a while, almost 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years now.
One of the first videos that we started, one of the first stocks we started talking about over a year ago was FUV at $1.79.
Yeah.
Don't stop talking. Yeah, no, you guys have been in on a nice run up.
We have, and I'm still buying, by the way. Every time I see the $10, I can't resist.
Hey,
Carlos just bought some more, I think.
Yeah. I bought that. I had
right.
some options. I had some call options.
Yeah, you guys go deep on the technical side. So,
Well, honestly, it would make sense if you just look at where you were at last year.
Well, and be sure you tune in on Tuesday. We've got a stakeholder update webinar coming up. So there may be things I'm not going to talk about today, but happy to chime in on that point.
Right.
Oh,
right.
absolutely great. That's awesome.
Normally those happen in we've just done them kind of how everybody else does it forever, which is the earnings call in concert with the filing of filings with the SEC. But the reality is, for a lot of stakeholders, want to know what happened during the quarter, right after the quarter.
Right.
And because of just the amount of time it takes to pull all the numbers together and then get the audits done and all that stuff, that gap is lame. So, there's a lot that we can talk about that has nothing to do with the dollars, but has to do with, how many did we build? How many did we put in customers' hands? How many are we earmarking for rentals? And then what's the plan ahead? And so we're going to start to split those out, the communications to stakeholders on what's actually important for us, particularly as we build over the next 18 months towards kicking off mass production. And then the required filings will certainly come in due time.
Obviously, everyone knows what Mark does. You guys are watching this. But for those new people, let's just play a real quick clip.
We believe that by right-sizing, electrifying, and better utilizing our rides, we can reclaim our space, clean our air, and make our cities much more livable for everyone. We built a new human-scale vehicle platform and a family of products dialed for a wide range of everyday trips. The Fun Utility Vehicle for daily driving, rentals, and rideshare. The Deliverator for last-mile delivery of essential food and goods. The Rapid Responder for emergency services and security. The Flatbed for general fleet utility. And the Roadster, a fun machine that drives like nothing else on the road. Every Arcimoto is pure electric.
So I just wanted people to see that for the 1,000th time. Okay.
If you don't know, right? If you don't know,
you caught the gold right there. Just in case they didn't get it the first 1,000 times.
Right.
1,001. Repetition works, actually, I found.
Absolutely. The other thing, let's just say you are doing this event at 3 to 6 p.m. today. So if anyone who owns an Arcimoto can go, or just
anyone who owns an Arcimoto, anyone who's renting one in Eugene for the day, anyone who just wants to show up and talk about the future afterwards. We're going to be, the rally itself is not going to go till 6. It'll be a relatively short ride, but then we'll come back to Ninkasi and talk about something that's very exciting to me, which is the launch of the ride of the Arconauts, which is our infinite road show. So it's that's something we're getting ready to kick off in about actually a week. A week from today is our the launch of the ride.
The launch of the ride.
And where are you going with this?
Can you speak and can you tell me, give him any more detail?
Well, the idea is that if you think about how vehicles are shown, typically you get invited to pay for a large booth fee at some conference 1,000 miles away. You load up the truck with the as you ship it there, and a bunch of people fly out, get hotel rooms, stay. Typically, they go inside to show a parked vehicle and talk to people, and all of that is crazy. So the idea of the ride of the Arconauts is we're just going to bring them to you. We're going to and do it in as efficient a way as we possibly can. So it's initially going to start out as something of a convoy. We're actually teaming up with the Dirt, which is a really cool app that lets you find great places to camp. And so we're going to have a convoy of motorhomes towing FUVs. But the idea is that it's, you know, you camp, go into a city, throw an event, pack up, go to the next campground, and really move around. You know, we're starting West Coast, but ultimately we think a relatively small swarm of these pods can hit every city in the country in a reasonable amount of time and get maximum exposure for the vehicles, let people who've been on our interest list for, you know, in some cases many years, actually get a chance to drive for the first time. And that in terms of just efficiency of operations, that it should, I mean, this is all, it's very prototype at this point, but ultimately the idea is that you have these self-contained pods that can very easily go to, you know, campground to city, to campground to city, to campground to city, versus, you know, truck vehicles 3,000 miles, fly people out, truck them back, fly people back. It's just the way that things are done now is a little crazy.
So here's a question leading from what you're saying. When you're traveling around, how are you charging? Is this standard level 2 charging? You're going to those facilities?
Well, the cool thing is campgrounds almost always, well, the campgrounds for RVs have RV power. So
Okay.
you just charge up at the campgrounds on their whatever 50 amp, 30 amp circuits.
Right.
And,
So regular outlets, basically, or 30 amp outlets, right?
Making the vehicle synonymous with the adventure that goes along with it is a really smart play. Like you get those people.
Yeah, that's the other thing is the Arcimotos are, I mean, they're very good for all of the things that were shown in the video there at the beginning, but they're also an amazing tow behind. So if you want to have the right vehicle for towing behind your camper to go explore a local area, the Arcimotos are perfect. The Roadster is awesome for it. The FUV is awesome for it. And so the campgrounds aren't just a place to stay. There's a bunch of customers there.
How much do they weigh? How much does an FUV weigh?
1,300 pounds. Roadster's about 1150, 1180, something like that.
That's not bad at all.
And when are you going into production for any of these, like for the Roadster? Is that actually happening sometime next year?
The Roadster is in production now. So I have the
new.
first production one. We built a number of them for demo purposes, and we're signing people up.
Oh wow! So you have a pre-order page already for the Roadster?
Yeah. If you go to arcimoto.com/roadster, I think you can get there.
Okay, that's awesome.
It looks.
That's great. Can you tell us how many pre-orders you have so far?
Well, so we don't presently differentiate the Roadster pre-orders amongst the list. We're just letting people say, okay, I want that one or that one or that one. People have said, you know, I want a Deliverator. There's a time when you hit that reserve button. And we've got one in the queue that we're building for our first external customer. But there are still a few on the, there's still, I would say we are in production of it. That is that we've built production Roadsters. But the team is still working out some of the internal process stuff to make that ordering easy. So you don't yet see it on the configurator. All of the options aren't there yet, but those will be coming very soon.
What's the current price tag?
$23,900 is the Roadster price.
$23,900 for the Roadster. Okay.
I should be clear. This is couched very much in forward-looking statements. Imagine a future when.
All right.
So this was, in fact, pushed into the frame. I jumped in it and then drove it away.
Okay.
There's some behind the scenes of a guy in a green suit, right?
I just want to stay for the night.
There is some behind the scenes.
Our TikTok eyewitness views team has been using that green very well.
That was great. That's how you do movie magic.
Imagine a city where your personal transportation is available at the touch of a button on your phone. Enjoy the experience of driving again. And when you reach your destination, you just hop out. And the Arcimoto is available for its next driver.
So what is the plan here for the autonomous FUV? Is this the 5-year? Is this the 10-year? When do we expect to see something like legit?
Well, we've actually with partners, we've actually shown driverless operating on an Arcimoto. We did that this summer, and
wasn't there a guy controlling it? I thought I saw someone controlling it in your video that you released.
Yeah, they were controlling it. It was basically driverless is for us either remotely operated or operated autonomously. And the way that we think about autonomy and driverless generally is the goal is to cut the cost and increase the convenience of vehicles. We are not today aiming for the full robo-taxi that can go on every road in every condition. What we're aiming for is, what can we do to reduce the cost? So if you think about like Uber or Lyft,
right,
or any of those, what ultimately you're paying for a vehicle that is expensive, that has a high cost of maintenance, high cost of operation in the form of gas. You're paying for a driver to drive that vehicle to you, and then you're paying for a driver to drive you to wherever you're going.
right.
Those are the big ticket costs of rideshare today, and it's why rideshare is expensive.
Per mile, yeah, per mile.
Yeah. So what can we do to reduce the cost of rideshare, to open up transportation equity of clean transportation for everybody? Well, you can reduce the cost of the vehicle. You can make a lightweight, low, ultra efficient vehicle platform. One of the crazy things about an Uber is that there are often two drivers in the vehicle. There's the driver driving and then the driver being driven. So you can get rid of the cost of the driver driving you around if you just jump into the driver's seat. And then that last cost, which is the cost of getting the vehicle to you or getting the vehicle somewhere where it's convenient. And you think about services like, Car2Go or Zipcar or any of those vehicle sharing services. There's a big logistics cost of scattering those all around the city, making sure that they've got gas in them or that they're charged up or whatever. And then there's the hassle of the person actually getting to one of those rides. You look at driverless for just that piece, which
Right.
is how do we get a vehicle, how do we reduce the cost of the logistics of the operation? And then how do we make it more convenient for people to share those rides? And it turns out that if you really constrain the autonomy problem to just that goal, it's a much simpler set of problems to solve than the perfect robo-taxi. And it gets you all of the same cost reduction benefit that the full robo-taxi does.
Are you developing the software yourself, or who are you partnering with to enable the software part of that?
We're developing the platform, the vehicle platform, and then the front end. We certainly envision Arcimoto as the user-facing brand, right? Arcimoto means Arc is the future, Moto is drive. So we see that as the brand identity for the future of transport. But in terms of that sensor and software stack, which again, we have a very particular job for that to do, which is to make logistics easier and to improve the convenience factor. I mean, at some point, you're sitting on the couch and you want your humaniform robot to pick you up and carry you out the door and put you on the vehicle, and it takes you magically away.
Like Wally.
So that you can be focused on Twitter and Facebook the whole time. But we see intermediate steps of convenience, like now there's always one within a couple of block walk, or now there's, it actually shows up in front of your house. Those are near-term things that we can do with software that largely exists today. And so that's, and we have not, the goal for Arcimoto is let's build the platform. Let's make sure that we have a very good driverless vehicle platform that has everything on the technology side that a higher level system of sensors and software can easily sit on top of in order to operate the vehicle. And then we just work the right deal so everybody wins.
The timeline is this the 5-year or the 10-year? For two questions first. One is the autonomous part where it's actually autonomous and it comes to you. And the second part, I think, are you thinking there might be an operator in the beginning part where it gets it to you? So there's two parts here.
It could be easily a combination, right? The autonomy software gets confused, a remote operator takes over, gets it back on the train, and then you're off and going. We see a combination of human and autonomous software, again, to reduce the cost. It's just about reducing the cost of that logistics piece of getting a vehicle to where you can conveniently use it. And in terms of time frame, we earlier this year, we set 2024 as when we want to have really a meaningful deployment of this tech. I think we'll be doing pilots and demonstrations much sooner than that.
One problem I see is if you leave a bunch of FUVs, which I assume you own, so now are you operating that whole fleet where you're dropping them in sort of cities all over the country, which is a big capital expense up front, right? I would assume.
There is. Once you have a business model that works, that is profitable for shared vehicles, and this has been a tough nut to crack because if you look at all of the existing doing it. It is there are complicated logistics problems. They have expensive vehicles, and so it makes it hard to develop a cost efficient model. We think that we can demonstrate cost effective model for vehicle sharing on because of the advantages that we think that the platform has and that the particular approach has. Once you get to that point, then it's a function of just, it's a loan, right? You go, okay, who's going to be our financing partner to finance this fleet? We've got a model that works. Let's deploy, 50 units into this municipality to help them out with equitable, clean transport.
Are you going to sort of franchise this idea where, let's say I wanted 10 Arcimotos around my area?
So someone can run that business and say,
so I can run this business.
I want to run that business.
Yeah, it's ultimately, sustainability is a social networking exercise.
Right.
So this is we see ultimately a partnership between sources of capital, municipalities, operators in market. Those could be Arcimoto employees. They could be employed by a third party. But the big goal is to get vehicles out there in use that are, that really make a major difference in terms of the energy cost per mile.
Do you have a first city you're planning to actually test this out on?
Well, we've got multiple first cities actually that we plan to test this out on, and they're probably not hard to guess, but we haven't announced them yet.
Well, but you also said you're starting this tour, and do you have any plans? Are you coming to LA? I'm in LA. I'm saying so. You're starting in LA.
LA's on the list. We couldn't miss LA. Why? We got to get you behind the handlebars for sure.
Oh, I would love to, and do like a first drive. That'd be fantastic. Yeah, I'd love to.
All right.
I guess you're not coming to New Jersey, huh?
Eventually,
maybe in 6 months, when it's like a little nicer,
this initial launch of the Arconauts is so we're going to figure out all the systems, make sure really bulletproof the SOPs for each of those pods. But ultimately, I would see 5, maybe 10 of these vehicles traveling the whole country, starting in early next year, and making sure that we just maximize butts and seats and minimize cost.
Just to follow up on what you were saying about ride sharing, like what percentage of that do you see as like as part of the FUV growth story, right? Like is that slowly going to become a larger part of FUV's revenue, or are you still looking, hard sales, selling
basically just selling
customers?
Well, we've run the numbers in a bunch of different ways. We're looking, one of the ways that we're looking right now is what if all of our revenue came from rideshare? Could we build a profitable business out of it?
Right.
We actually think that we can, and so, but we also see giant opportunity in last mile delivery, a giant opportunity in individual consumers buying vehicles. Platform 2 is we're looking at the entirety of the e-bike market and saying, we think we can take a piece of that one too, and not just take a piece of the existing market, but really grow that micromobility opportunity. And that's a global opportunity.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. So platform 2, is it meant for basically like restaurants, instead of buying an Arcimoto, which is more expensive, an FUV, I'm sorry, buying the platform 2, it's basically an e-bike that's a little bit more convenient. Maybe you can carry something as well. Is that meant for the delivery guy? And then cars are completely bypassed, basically.
I like to think of it as sort of like bicycle 3.0. I mean, it's taking everything about the bike that is annoying or challenging or whatever, and just trying to really fix all of those issues on that size of a platform. So something that's very comfortable, very fun, very stable, lots of carrying capacity, and yet another major step forward in terms of efficiency, even versus the FUV. But it is, so where FUV is kind of meant as the step down from the car, platform 2 is meant as a sort of a big step up from the e-bike. And then between those are really the bookmarks, the bookends of where we see the big opportunity in transportation, which is not reusing old patterns and just adding batteries, but really rethinking those platforms in light of electrification, in light of shared mobility, in light of features like autonomy. What can we do to really rethink, but still use a lot of the same basic ideas?
Can you clarify the $2,000 price point? When we saw that attached to platform 2, can you clarify What does that $2,000 number mean for platform 2?
It's a target consumer price point of a base model mean lean machine. That's what we're aiming for.
That's a 10x reduction.
Well, I was saying,
EVs are
I mean, it
18,000.
depends on the purpose. Like if it's
Yeah,
for
it's in
delivery,
in that e-bike category, right? And they're going to be, as we look at delivery, there, you know, we are talking with a bunch of different delivery fleets. A lot of them are experimenting with e-bikes as part of it. So we think that the Deliverator has a fantastic purpose as a delivery vehicle for some types of last mile delivery. I think platform 2 is going to have a bunch of other last mile delivery opportunities, particularly in urban cores that like aren't allowing larger scale vehicles at all. You got a lot of, you know, if something that can go on the bike path, something that can go in much more crowded areas than the Arcimoto would be too big for.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the main question I had from the last video, if you watched the whole one. So I know Arcimoto is still a small company. How are you taking engineers off of the main product, which I'm assuming is still ramping and you still got to build your facility? Yep. How are they being diverted? And
we budgeted at the beginning of the year and we just said, okay, CEO gets this small amount for his crazy future product ideas.
Minus $1.
And the bulk of the effort is get platform 1 to scale.
If you have an actual person on platform 1 working, and that's his main job, and now you're taking his time and splitting it between.
I mean, platform 2 was skunk works for many months. I mean, it was a totally separate team, and these are guys that you know, some of my Eugene has a whole community of amazing bike builders. It's been a part of the Eugene story for a long time. So I ended up tapping a guy I've known forever who an incredible bike designer and engineer to be a part of that program. We pulled in the Tilting Motorworks team, and again that's been their whole jam is lighter weight tilting vehicles. We also see there will be technology pieces that totally cross over. So battery management, communication with cell phone devices, you know, a bunch of those different future programs are actually easier to develop on a smaller scale thing and then scale up. There's if you're into astronomy, there's an old saying like it's easier to grind a 2-inch mirror and then a 6-inch mirror than it is to grind a 6-inch mirror. So in a lot of ways, some of the tech that we're chewing on for platform 2 is going to be a step up to get to FUV. It's actually beneficial from a development standpoint to develop it first on platform 2.
So you're saying it's not delaying platform 1 at all?
What's that?
It's not delaying any way platform 1 moving forward.
Platform 1's got it has a giant team pushing it forward. That's why we brought on the team at Monroe and Associates, and actually a collection of teams that they work with. And it's a very different problem set. But I think it will ultimately, the two will be very synergistic, and particularly in terms of the business model, because the rideshare and rentals is how we are aiming to get vehicles into market. And there are going to be rental opportunities where you want a larger vehicle to go on roads and tour around an island or whatever. And then there are going to be rental opportunities where you want to go on the bike path. And if you put both of those in the same store, you get more customers, more revenue, same retail footprint.
I think you answered one of my questions. This was one of my main questions, is that, you know, companies like Tesla have announced that they're going to be going into mass production for a $25,000 vehicle. And with the base price of an FUV being $18,000 and spec'd out, it's about 20 something thousand. My question was, what is FUV's response to that? I mean, how do you make the case to get an FUV, or is it like a second vehicle, or if someone only wants one?
The long-term plan at mass production we've always been angling for a $10,000-ish base price for the FUV once we're at scale. And today there are cars that you can get for 18 grand that burn gas and are full-size cars.
Yeah.
It's a different usage pattern. We think, you know, there will definitely be a place for the $25,000 Tesla. There's no question about it. But if I have a choice between getting groceries in a Tesla and getting groceries in an Arcimoto, I will choose the Arcimoto 100% of the time.
That's because you're from Eugene, Oregon. Have you seen the Midwest?
It's
I mean,
well, again,
it's all SUVs, right? Have you spoken to people out there and actually found out if they're willing to change their driving patterns? Is this something they're willing to do?
well, it's yes and yes and yes. We've got pre-order customers from all over every state and all over the world. So clearly there is an interest in these markets for what we're building. But I think the thing that's really important to recognize is California is like the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah. Everything's
Right?
done. Everything's made here.
Add
Yeah.
in Florida, add in Texas, add in Arizona. You're talking about an absolutely massive market that's already perfectly suited for what we're building now. So, we want to go after the low-hanging fruit. Now, longer term, there is nothing about the FUV platform that prevents it from hosting a fully embodied, more car-like thing that is suitable for a Midwest winter. But that is when you look at what's the development cost, what's the tooling cost to get that on the road, it's really substantial. And so we wanted to make sure that we actually got product into the market, into the hands of customers, start really, battle testing the vehicle platform on the road in the real world, right? You can build test prototypes and run them on test tracks all you want, but as soon as you get into the market, your customers will do never thought to do in testing. You'll find out quality issues you didn't find out in pre-production. So one of the real advantages of getting vehicles in market and now going through the process we've done for the last 2 years now is that we've got a lot of longitudinal data on the performance of the vehicle on the road. I surfaced a ton of different ways that we can make improvements for the higher volume production vehicle family. And those are all things that we're charging down the road on now.
All the testing you've done so far, what is the main thing you found out that was a problem and that you had to solve in all this testing across the country?
It's a laundry list. There's a lot of in terms of the first time user experience. When you develop a piece of software, right, you've used it so much that a lot of the little wrinkles in it, you just sort of subconscious, like you already know the keystroke combination to get through that menu. And particularly as we had so much to do to get the initial vehicle into production, even just basic stuff in the first time user experience, making sure we've got really clear messages on the screen about what's going on, dialing in the ergonomics. And then the big ones have been things like quality issues from components that we've sourced where it'll work for the first 300 miles and then your charger conks out, and understanding what we have to do to get the right processes in place on our side and then also at all of our suppliers so that it's just right the first time. One of the really cool things about the third quarter, and this is an anecdote, but we had vehicles for the first time in numbers come off the line that quality tagged for 0 reworks, right? So it
perfect
came off the line and was right the first time, ready to go on the truck. And that just has to do with a lot of this is just process and continuous improvement. Right. And it's not the sexy numbers that you want to hear on an earnings call, but it's actually critical for the growth of the company.
6 months ago or so, you had some recalls of some batteries. So people made a big deal of it. I didn't think it was such a big deal, but can you tell us more of what happened there?
We've had more than a dozen recalls going back to when we launched the first production vehicle. Recalls are a part of the business. When you find an error in the product or in a supplied component or in the software, you got to tell your customers and you got to bring the vehicles back and fix them or fix them in the field. And that's something that we take very seriously. So people who are making hay about it are pointing at the wrong thing. When we find problems, we fix them.
The new factory, what percentage of it would you say is like fabrication and what percentage of it would you say is this pure assembly? It seemed to me that majority of what you're doing at the factory is just assembling and getting the vehicles out. And that's why you can focus on platform 2, because this is now a numbers game and just sort of creating the
I should say platform 2 is a very small portion of our overall effort and expenditure, just to be clear. So it's something I am very excited about. I think The mission of the company is to continually lighten the footprint of everyday trips, and that's going to be a big forward step when it's actually done it in the market. But as far as the factory goes,
Yeah.
None of the factory space that we have today is dedicated towards Platform 2 product production.
Is there fabrication?
All of our factory is focused on Platform 1, and we point where we're ready to start thinking about where are we going to produce the Mean Lean Machine and its follow-ons. We'll get there, but that's a longer term picture. In terms of the facility, we are keeping our existing Arcimoto manufacturing plant, and we're going to do a bit of musical chairs in terms of what machines go where does fab live, where does plastics live, where does battery manufacture live, and then where does assembly. The majority of the new ramp space is going to be assembly, and ultimately the goal out of the ramp is not just the building of a factory. You can sort of think of this as our mass production prototype. So we are figuring out the space needs and the systems for everything to come together for a mass production facility for Arcimotos, that then we can open up the next facility. And we're not going to do it, the way that, say Tesla does, which is just, new build from the ground up. Arcimoto is just a much simpler product and takes up a lot less space. So we think we will be able to just use lots of existing facilities and just say, okay, this is the exact square footage we need. This is where this piece of it goes, this piece of it, order the equipment, turn it on, hire the people, and then have all the processes, basically Arcimoto in a box, the full documentation to spin up a new production facility.
Are you actually trying to at some point vertically integrate and produce some of these sort of in-house, the bodies, all the components, whatever you need, basically?
It'll be a mix. So today we're not, as we move to the higher volume production of some of the components, like the suspension arms or the knuckles, as an example, those are moving from complex weldments that are, laser cut tube and sheet metal and stitched together by welding robots. Those will become permanent mold cast items. We're not planning today to spin up a casting operation inside each of our facilities. There's a lot of existing resources that are very good at doing that. Now, let's say we hit the point where we're building 1 million vehicles a year, then those things, it may make sense to make the significant capital expenditures to vertically integrate them. But today it's really all about developing the right pattern and then driving cost out to the degree that we can of our present design.
At its capacity, how many vehicles do you see that factory pushing out? And then number two would be, in order to serve the greater United States, is your plan to ramp up that factory and ship them? Or would you just essentially, like you said, put a factory everywhere that you want them to reduce the delivery costs of the vehicles?
Yeah, so the plan for the facility we have now is at maximum, we think we will be able to get to 50,000 units a year.
What year is your timeline to get there to 50,000 units?
We have not articulated that, but it's going to be a ramp up. So, I think, 2024 at some point within that realm would be, sort of a near term. By that time, my hope is that we have already broken ground on one or more additional facilities. And to your second question, the East Coast, ultimately it doesn't make sense for us to be shipping vehicles from Oregon across the country. You've got automotive supply chain hubs in the Midwest. You've got a big one down in the Southeast. And I think that we'll find that there are good spaces there, mothballed auto plants that would be good homes for second or third Arcimoto ramps.
Here's a light bulb question just to follow up. What happens in 2030 in your mind for Arcimoto? Where are you at? What do you see? Do you see amps but be practical? Where are they in the world? It's like, what do you actually see?
Like paint us a picture of a potential FUV and
what is happening right now.
The FUV and certainly Platform 2 have always been conceived as global market products. They do very well in narrow streets and crowded cities, and particularly for markets that are already huge adopters of two-wheeled vehicles, understand the three-wheeled thing, all over Southeast Asia, Europe, South America, Africa. We think that there is that this is ultimately a global opportunity, which is why so much of our focus now is not just on building a higher capacity factory, but really dialing in the systems and processes to be able to copy paste. But I would say 2030, the idea would be we've got ramps literally all over the world, at least one in Europe, multiple in Southeast Asia, South America, Africa, and that they are all sharing a robust global supply chain.
Do you have actual interest from those countries that they're contacting you right now and saying, look, we want this vehicle there. When is this coming?
Yes, we have had interest from all over the world.
I think yes.
Arcimoto.
Well, we got it. Yes.
Yep.
That's the soundbite.
Well, that's what he wanted. Yes.
Yeah. No, and that's been true for years. We've had people reaching out to us. This year, we finally hired a chief international business officer in the form of Dilip Sundaram, who is a very senior guy at Mahindra. We're sort of now it's like, okay, now we've got the person in the team that can start identifying all those opportunities, build those partnership bridges, understand, what are the low hanging fruit in terms of market entry, the regulatory hurdles. Obviously any country that accepts NHTSA certified vehicles from a manufacturer, those are easier to get into than ones that require a completely different homologation structure. Does the business model need to shift when we go into a new place? How do we, what are the right capital partners? What are the right market partners? And begin to sift that out as we are looking towards much higher scale.
On a personal note, how are you enjoying being a CEO of a company growing like this?
Well, it's definitely never a dull day. I think and certainly a reasonable way to pass the time. It was never, I never, growing up, I never imagined I would become an entrepreneur. That wasn't on the radar. It was only when, it was actually only really at the beginning of Garage Games when one of my co-founders, Jeff Tennell, pulled me aside. He's like, hey, you need to quit this company that I founded, Dynamics, and you need to start working on a new engine because we're going to go change the world. That I really started to think, okay, entrepreneurship is a way for making a meaningful change in the world. And with Arcimoto, that's definitely the case. So and even starting Arcimoto, my goal was not to be CEO. I just realized at a certain point along the way that if I didn't step in front of the train and start talking about it, that it wasn't going to work. And so I think that the biggest challenge on that I see for the company right now that I'm working on day in, day out is developing the systems of leadership and communication that will allow us to scale to the place where we need to be in order to make the impact that we're striving for. But as far as, my personal enjoyment of it, it ebbs and flows. I think the demands certainly have increased. The amount of communication I'm dealing with has increased. But getting a sense of the market and how that actually operates. I mean, it was sort of like we went public in 2017, and I had really very little idea. And I think a lot of first-time public CEOs just don't understand the way that the market works and the way that communication with the market is supposed to work. And so that was definitely a learning curve. I think I've got a little bit of my sea legs under me now in terms of that function. And then, the other piece of it too is just that one of the few silver linings of COVID is just that we all get to communicate with each other from our happy places, right? I'm at home.
You're in the
right?
shed. You're in the shed.
I don't need to put on a suit and tie. I mean,
right.
And so I think that's allowed me to be much more me than showing up at a big conference wearing a suit and tie and having these one-on-one meetings at tables. And it's just like, I find that it's actually much more in a lot of ways that the communication that we are afforded now is more authentic than what was probably typical of things prior to this, prior to taking things from home.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I invested in you, actually you and Arcimoto, is because you're doing a grassroots thing where I feel like you're actually building things and you're doing a grassroots. And that's what I like to see, because there's a lot of names we can drop right now. Nikola, there's no grassroots movement. Nikola, is that all right? There's no grassroots movement. There's nothing to believe in. There's nothing to look forward to. You know what I'm saying? So I do appreciate that you're actually doing that.
And I think one of the challenges, and you brought up one company, but I think this is true of a number of those that have gone, sort of the accelerated scale of just getting a giant bucket of public market cash and not really understanding, even something as simple as what is the difference between a statement of fact and a forward-looking statement.
Right.
And I think there is certainly in the Silicon Valley world, you look at Theranos and this is not limited to to public companies, but when you're in that entrepreneurial mindset, you spend a lot of your mind in the future, right? You're like, this is where we are, this is the future I live in, right? But you got to say it, you got to make sure you say it as, this is where we're aiming for. This is what we're planning to do. Circumstances on the ground may shift and we'll adjust course accordingly. But I think there's a tendency a lot of times amongst entrepreneurs to say, this is what we've got. And it's no, this is what we're aiming for. So that's been certainly a learning lesson for me. And I think I'm just glad that we learned it when we were a much smaller company.
No, you're handling it so well that I still believe and I still invest. That's how
we're still investing. Yeah, we still invest.
That's the thing. Like, even after my 5-6x at this point, I'm still thinking that there is a massive upside because I believe in the vision. Not only that, because everyone's selling a vision nowadays, right? I believe that you're doing a grassroots movement and talking to people like us who are investors and also possibly buyers of the Arcimoto, that this is important to get the ground level to believe in you, right? So I think that's why you're doing that.
It's also just an approach to building anything. It's
engineering mindset.
I've been encouraged by one of our esteemed executive advisors to make a list of rules. And one of them in terms of simplicity is outlines before essays, right? It's make sure you've got the bones right before you add all the muscle. And I think that's really the way that it's the way I used to like to build games. And that's certainly the way I think it's right to build Arcimoto is you get the platform right, then you build the product on top of the platform, then you take that to small volume production, then you go to scale once you've figured out all the glitches. And if you add too much cash too early, what happens is that there becomes this forcing function to get something out there, and you just end up wasting, and it doesn't work out how you want it to. So it takes it's an iterative approach, and you definitely have to be patient, but I think ultimately it gets you to a much better result.
How would you compare the difficulty in creating the models, like you said, the initial platform versus getting it to scale?
Oh, scaling is orders of magnitude more difficult. Orders of magnitude. Now, the challenges in the early days were all, nobody believed it was possible, right? And we'd put this, crazy looking half-baked 3-wheeled prototype on the road, and it was just like you could see the look. It's like, best of luck, kid. I will never touch this thing.
Right. Death trap.
right.
And so that was I think the challenge in the early days was like even internally was just believing that we would get there by just continually pushing through and understanding the challenges, that eventually the insights would arrive that would allow us to move through the gates. The challenge that is now is how do you orchestrate hundreds and then thousands and then tens of thousands of people all over the world to build, deploy, get things out? How do you really streamline the human communication processes to make that sing? And that's, if you are good at building one thing, and you're good at making a prototype, or you've really got that artistic piece dialing in, switching into the mode of, well, now I'm programming with people and money it's a very different way of looking at the world.
Back to the chip shortage and the fact that you're going to
Yes, that was
send less Arcimotos out this year. That's why the recent stock hit sort of happened from around 17 to 10. So can you tell us briefly what happened? What is going on with the chip shortage? Why?
It wasn't just the chip shortage. We've had supply chain glitches throughout the product. This is, when the Texas freeze happened and all those petrochemical plants went down, all of a sudden we were scrambling for seals on the gearbox. When one of our suppliers for the fluid reservoir that holds our coolant fluid had a COVID outbreak and then a glitch in a computer system.
Oh my God.
We had to scramble for water bottles, right? And this is across the company or across the product. You've got boats stacked up at the port of LA like the world's never seen. You had the Suez Canal blockage. Certain ports in China had, multi-week shutdowns due to COVID. And these, it's everyone. We've got apparel companies that have shortages from the supply chain, and their inputs are like, 5 different materials.
How's it being solved though? So I get you have the supply issues, but how are you going forward, making sure that this doesn't happen next year?
We just have a super kick-ass materials team that's scrambling every day to make sure that the production pipeline's full. And then when it's not possible to get to where we thought we were going to get to, then I just tell the market, hey guys, we're going to have fewer vehicles output this year. Material from the big picture of Arcimoto, we have enough vehicles on the road today, and certainly will through the ones that we intend to produce through the end of this year and into next year, to test the business models we need to test, to get the early adopters in that we need to get, and to learn everything that we need to learn about the product in order to go to scale. The big overarching effort for the company, bar none, is get to scale production. And that's where, the lion's share of the energy is being expended. And so, if you go back and look at what I said on the Q1 call and the Q2 call, and actually right at the beginning of the year in our stakeholder letter, the goals that we set out for 2021, I think we're going to knock all out of the park, except for hitting one goal in terms of here's our goal for number of units shipped to customers, that is caveated by a topsy-turvy supply chain.
Do you see the same issue going forward in the second year, or are you going to hit your goals, you think, in the second year?
Well, we haven't articulated any public market goals other than to say that we're going to have a relatively shallow growth ramp that will likely be choppy. That was, I think, almost
right. Well, I believe you said at some point there was 80 vehicles coming off a month, right?
Step up to when the ramp is starting to churn out vehicles, we'll start to see real steps up in terms of production output.
And that's by the end of 2022.
Yeah. And so, and I mean, just to put that in context, you've got electric vehicle companies sitting out there with market caps, orders of magnitude beyond Arcimoto's, that have yet to ship a single product. So if you're judging Arcimoto by unit output today,
right,
versus what we're planning on doing in the very near time frame, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months, then I think you're missing a critical part of the story.
So in your opinion, it's undervalued right now?
I am not a financial analyst.
You cannot go in and manipulate.
I haven't sold a single share.
That's amazing. That is important.
Well, when you look at insider, a lot of times you see the insider.
Yeah, I do check the insiders, and you have not sold a single share. So that's great to know.
Even when it was at 36, you were like, nope.
Yeah, he's like, no.
Let everybody, let the other guys get their feast.
Right.
But I think we've got a lot of opportunity in front of us.
Right.
And I agree with you. And that's why, like I said, we actually are long-term investors. Here's another question, because I know you have to go. So we didn't talk about the rental market. And we know you're in 4 places right now. I had a couple of questions, and Carlos, you did too. But one question is, first of all, you have rental market in 4 places. And it seems like you're partnering, it's not Arcimoto solely owned places. And the second thing, it seems like the prices are all over the place, because Eugene, Oregon, it's $100 a day. And somewhere else, I think in
Eugene,
Florida,
it was like $15, and in LA,
it's $16 an hour in Eugene.
Right.
Yeah.
But you've got Key West, where it costs $180 to rent a golf cart. You've got the Jersey Shore, where it's $40 an hour to rent a golf cart. You've got these, scoot coops that are in some places $72 an hour. So yeah, that we're going to be priced in the market that we're in. As we get lots and lots and lots of vehicles out there, the goal is to make them ever more affordable wherever they are. But we do think it's important. One of the near-term objectives is to demonstrate a profitable rental model for Arcimoto that pays back the vehicle's cost and generates ongoing revenue. And if we can do that, then it makes that rental model much easier to finance and doesn't make it a part of the cost of sort of our equity cost of the business. And even if we don't get there for all markets or whatever, we still think that is a much less expensive way of doing in-market experience versus the traditional dealer franchise or the company-owned store that now pretty much every electric vehicle company is doing, right? You've got the high-priced mall, Tesla store, Rivian store, Lucid store, all the rest. We think that rentals is a more cost-efficient way of getting butts in seats and having people actually have a chance to experience the vehicle for a half a day or a day.
Do you plan any like rent to own?
There are a lot of different follow-ons to that. Like, so as rental inventory has been on,
Prior year model, sell them out.
We could sell it. We could rental towards the purchase of your vehicle. I think there are a lot of ways that we can facilitate, and then there's also the whole issue of just vehicle financing, which is also very present for a number of our customers.
So how are you splitting between, let's say you partner with somebody, how is it split? Is it like a 50-50 split when they get your vehicle?
It depends. So we've got actually, we started out with 3 different ideas for rental. There'd be the stores that we operate the rental, we take 100%. On the other end is the rental franchise, and that's what we have in Key West, where they paid a franchise fee, can use the brand, they buy vehicles. Eventually they would buy vehicles at wholesale. We don't have a wholesale price yet. And then they pay us a small part of the top line forever forward.
That's not public yet, right?
What's that?
That's not public yet. How much that is?
If you're interested in a rental franchise, you can contact our team, sign an NDA, and we'll talk more.
You've said that. You've said that line 100 times.
and then there's in the middle are places that are sort of partner rentals, and this is and some of these will be a hybrid model. So what we did with the Graduate Hotel in Eugene is, and if you think about it for hotels, the Arcimoto is a fantastic amenity, right? If you've got a rent, you've got all these customers showing up on Uber and Lyft, Rideshare, where they used to rent a car at the airport. Now they're all showing up on Rideshare, like half of them. And you've got this vehicle parked out in front, and you can say, hey, here's a way that you can enjoy the city, go out, check out a winery. All they got to do is point the customer to that vehicle, and then they get a cut. And then we get a cut, and then there are existing vehicle rental operations that want to have new cool things to rent out to their customers, and we can work out deals there as well.
When are you going to break that down in terms of the quarterlies? It's probably too soon, but is that next year?
I think next year, once we get all this stuff dialed in and really running like clockwork, I think we're going to have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. But give us a little bit. We really only started company-owned rentals at Eugene and San Diego at the very beginning of the summer. So it's going to take a little bit just to get everything dialed in to where that ship's running like clockwork.
That's awesome. And did you have a song for us, or you did not?
Before you
I do have my guitar here.
That's awesome. Should I get my guitar? We'll
I got my drums right here.
How many roads must a man FUV down? Just kidding.
I kind of like that already.
I do have 2 questions because we're trying to respect the hour. First of all, when are we getting doors on an FUV?
So we got we did complete our first set of half doors for a customer and got those on a vehicle before the end of Q3, which was our goal. And we're in the beginning stages of reaching out to all the people we owe doors to in the form of our evergreen customers. Then we also have on the drawing board, and I hinted this earlier this year in that 2024 concept of just more of the fully embodied Arcimoto vehicle, but that's still a little ways out.
What is the biggest misconception about FUV that you want to set the record straight?
The platform is the product. People think we're doing a lot of different things. We're building one thing. And at the very end of the process, we can skin that thing in a lot of different ways. And so for everyone who's been like, oh gosh, now they've got this and that, and they've distracted focus and whatever. It's like, no, it's one thing. And the reason we're doing all of those different things is to make sure that as we go to scale, that scale platform can host all of those different variants very easily. If we didn't do that, then we would have a scaled version of one thing that we'd have to go back and do a ton more work in terms of making it adaptable for the wide range of uses that we see for everyday mobility.
Would it make sense, actually, from what he's saying, the platform is the product? Would it make sense at some point to just sell the platform to whoever? Let's say India has its own company that wants to make something similar.
Skin it.
Yeah. I mean, I've even looked at as just a factory material mover, the platform by itself with a little scissor lift on it. I mean, it's got, there's so much adaptability for that basic unit of transport.
Mark, we appreciate all the time.
Really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It just makes me more bullish on the company.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Well, hey, really appreciate you guys reaching out and helping to tell the story.
Remember to hit like and subscribe and hit the bell. We're following this video with an exclusive tour of Arcimoto's facilities and the kickoff of the Fall FUV Rally.
You're going to see everything in that video, so you better hit the bell if you want to be notified.